Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, wherever you are joining from around the world. Welcome to this Forward Thinkers webinar, organized by the World Future Council in partnership with the Pesticide Action Network, Asia and the Pacific. My name is Helmi Abuleish, and I'm the counselor of the World Future Council and a co-chair of its Ecosystems and Livelihoods Commission. I'm delighted to be moderating today's session on policies for sustainable and healthy agri-food systems, which is held in occasion of the World Food Day, one of the most celebrated days of the UN calendar. This year's motto of the World Food Day is "Our action, our future." Indeed, the future is in our hands, and it's imperative that we act. Never before did our decisions and actions have such profound consequences. We face a huge responsibility. In particular, we need precise demands on the forms of pest policies. They can ensure that right and responsibilities goes together. And this is why we founded the World Future Council back in 2007. The Council focuses on identifying and spreading effective policy solutions for current challenges humanity is facing. We honor them with our Future Policy Award. The Future Policy Award is globally speaking unique. It's the only award which celebrates policies that create better the living conditions for current and future generations at an international level, in partnership with the UN and other international organizations. Every year, we identify a topic on which policy progress is particularly urgent. The awarded policies provide excellent starting points for a race to the top to secure a safer world for our children and future generations. Food insecurity, climate change, biodiversity loss, and chemical pollutions. Whilst it is widely acknowledged that we need urgently to transform our food system to ensure our common future on this planet, too little is known about the countries or states that take fundamental steps towards that aim. In 2018, the World Future Council honored 8 policies with the Future Policy Award on the topic of scaling up agroecology, in partnership with the FAO and IFOR, Organics International. And in 2021, we celebrated 5 exemplary policies protecting from hazardous chemicals, in partnership with the UNEP, SAICEM, UNITAR, OECD, UNDP, and the ILO. Today is all about 2 of these amazing policies, which are now amongst the 60 laws coming from 40 countries from around the globe that have been recognized with the Future Policy Award. They are policies that drive positive change, that push for sustainable and healthy agri-food systems, and that address the multiple crises we face at once, bringing about results that are worth of replication. In the next 1.5 hours, we will be hearing from a wonderful board of plenary speakers, Dr. Hansen, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Millennial Institute, President of the Biodiversity Foundation and Counselor of the World Future Council. And he will give a keynote address outlining the major challenges which lie ahead of us, highlighting their interlinkages and the critical role that agri-food systems can play in tackling these multiple crises at once. We will then take a look at Sri Lanka's pesticide regulations, which led to one of the greatest decreases in suicide rates ever achieved in the world, and which were recognized by the Future Policy Special Award 2021. We will listen to a speech of His Excellency Mahindandana Alugamange, Minister of Agriculture of Sri Lanka. We will interview Ingrid Fritsche, who is project manager of the Future Policy Award of the World Future Council, about this policy and see a short film. We will then move to the Indian state of Sikkim, which became the first 100% organic state in the world, and which was recognized with the Future Policy Gold Award in 2018. We are honored to have with us Mr. Sanda Ambalanga, Chief Executive Officer of Sikkim's Organic Farming Development Agency of the government of Sikkim, who will speak about the awarded policies, and we will then see a short film. Thereafter, our renowned panelists will discuss about the roles that pesticides and agroecology policies can play in transforming our agri-food system. During the discussion, you are all very much invited to ask questions and make comments. The renowned panelists are Sarojini Renga, Executive Director of the Pesticide Action Network, Asia and the Pacific; Paogen Gu, Senior Agricultural Officer for Pest and Pesticide Management at the Food and Agricultural Organization of the UN; Gabor Figelski, Senior Manager of Global Policies at iForm Organics International; Kehkashan Basu, Founder and President of the Green Hope Foundation, as well as our keynote speaker, Dr. Hans Herren. Thank you all, distinguished speakers, for accepting our invitation and making time to speak to us today. This webinar is live streamed on Facebook, and we will wish to know what you think and feel. So please join the conversation in the chats of Zoom and Facebook. We want to know your thoughts. It's going to be really interesting programs ahead, filled with hope and courage. We will now begin with the keynote of Dr. Hans Herren from the Millennial Institute. Hans, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm already all switched in. Greetings to everybody who is participating in this webinar of the World Future Council. It's a pleasure to be here and to be given the opportunity to start up the discussion. So my theme is, sort of, okay, what is the potential of the agri-food system to contribute to a changing world right now? And what I want to start with really is about the issues. As you know, the present food system is just not able to cope with the situation of hunger we were experiencing since years and decades, and never really got over that part of it. Nutrition, good nutrition, healthy nutrition, which is particularly of interest. And also the whole issue of right now, COVID, which has shown very well, that the present system is not coping with the situation. And there will be more crises. And in particular, we know what's coming upon us with the climate change, which is enormous challenges for the agri-food system. And unless we change the way we do grow, do we process, consume, and manage the leftovers, I think we will be in a very dire situation. So there's plenty of recognition actually globally that we have this problem. There's been many reports for years now written asking for a major change in the way we manage our food system. That the direction in which we are going right now is not the right one. But again, writing reports is the easy part. To implement, to develop the policies which will actually make sure that all this knowledge, the science, the technology is being, whatever we know, is being used to better the food system we're still a ways away. And we are lucky, and that's what the World Future Council has found a number of very good examples around the world, that some are taking the bull by the horns, as we could say here, and say, look, we need to do something, and we do something. And as you know, a number of countries, Sri Lanka, the last one, Sikkim, part of India, which already has also taken steps to change that food system. So here we are, good examples are leading the way. But again, these are drops in a bucket, and we need to now really finally accept that there is a challenge and take it. And not the least because we are reaching the planetary boundaries and overreaching them already in many instances, as you know, and the agri-food system is responsible for most of these, being the nitrogen, the phosphorus, loss of biodiversity. These are major overstepping of our planetary boundaries, which need to be reversed, not only stopped, reversed, and we need to restore and reestablish those systems. And one important component actually are the ecosystem services, which we have basically sort of pushed aside and transformed into a business. There again, we need to go back to nature and make policies that are supportive of this transformation, back to involve nature in solving our problems. Again, the resilience which is required by the system, by a resilient system, is based on using ecosystem services. So the transformation has to go for everybody, for the industrial, the conventional, the subsistence agriculture. They all need now to transition to this ecologically based style agriculture. I think that's what we are looking at. We know that the CFS, FAO, and others have come up with principles for agroecology. So they are all there. We know what to do. We also know that it actually works. And so we need really to implement at the policy level. And this is the most important thing. I think we can work from the ground up, and many people have done very good examples on how we can change the system from the ground up. The problem is that unless the policy change, and in particular subsidy policies, we spend every year more than $450 billion in subsidizing agricultural practices, which are actually destroying the planet, destroying the good health of the people. And I think that has to stop and to be reversed. So if any policy would just tackle the subsidies, which today are actually creating the problems, we would be long ways in helping the transformation. And these policies need to be done by governments, responsible governments, who are not listening to the lobby of interested parties or vested interests of the power which are today, but who are listening to the people who want change, listening to science, the knowledge of the farmers, which is plenty out there, and transform this and build it into the policies to get going. So my 5 minutes, I think, are over. So, but what I would like to say to conclude, which is very important, is that we have a policy framework. We have the SDGs, and if we were just only to make sure that we meet these targets by 2030, which are within the 17 goals, I think we will be long ways in going where we need to go in terms of transforming our food system. And so what I can say to conclude here is that we have the framework, we have the knowledge, we have the science, the technology to do better, to transform the food system, to scale up this agroecology, to transform it toward and make sure that we have the resilience needed to, again, overcome climate change challenges, which are enormous, that we have to overcome our health challenges and all our many social challenges which are linked to the food system. As we know, farmers are the biggest part of the poor people are on this planet are actually our farmers. How is it that the people who produce the food for everybody are the ones who suffer most. So again, from hunger, from malnutrition, cannot continue like this. And I think we all know that there are solutions. So why don't we let's implement them within a framework which is known, which would work if we would put the effort into that direction. So happy to be on the panel later on also to continue the discussion. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Hans. Thank you very much for highlighting the benefits of healthy, sustainable agri-food systems for people and the environment so clearly. Let's move to Sri Lanka. The summary for policymakers of the forthcoming UNEP report on environmental and health impacts of pesticides and fertilizers and ways of minimizing them underlines that our pesticide use causes an unsustainable range of adverse impacts on the environment and health. Pesticides are everywhere in the environment and cause both acute and long-term health impacts. In particular, about 385 million cases of non-fatal, unintentional pesticide poisonings occur every year, and self-poisoning with highly hazardous pesticide is one of the most common suicide methods globally. It's absolutely clear that we urgently need to take bold actions on this matter. Let us visit Sri Lanka, a country that proved that highly hazardous chemicals can be successfully banned. Its pesticides and suicide prevention policy did receive the Future Policy Special Award 2021 in the category of highly hazardous pesticides. In the past, Sri Lanka had one of the world's highest suicide rates, and pesticides poisoning accounted for more than 2/3 of all cases. The award-winning policies of the Sri Lanka have contributed to one of the greatest decreases in suicide rates ever achieved in the world. Now let us first listen to a short speech of His Excellency Mahindananda Alugamga, Minister of Agriculture, Sri Lanka, before I will interview Ingrid Fritsche, who is Project Manager of the Future Policy Award and it's at the World Future Council.
Distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen, I am extremely happy and very honored to accept the Future Policy Special Award 2021 on behalf of the implementers of Sri Lanka's Control of Pesticides Act and National Policy on Prevention of Suicide. We, the Sri Lankan citizens, take this opportunity to thank the World Future Council, its partners and donors for this international recognition and prestigious award. The adoption of this policy resulted from a rewarding collaboration between our Ministry of Agriculture and Health. First, it's a great stride in our attempt to reduce suicides. The policy has already improved chemical safety for 2 million Sri Lankan householders and reduced pesticide-related environmental hazards. Presidential Policy Directive dated 10th May 2021 to transform Sri Lanka into a green socio-economy, providing sustainable solutions to climate change scenarios, made our country to move forward to a toxin-free nation. Our new policy will no longer allow us to use highly hazardous pesticides in agriculture. We wish to thank you once again for this important recognition, about which we are extremely happy and extend the support of the vision of our toxin-free world and ready to share our experience with global policy makers in future as well. Thank you.
Now I'm very happy to have here with me Ingrid Fritsche, who is Project Manager of the Future Policy Award at the World Future Council. Ingrid, could you explain to us what are the main methods of the awarded Sri Lankan policies?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Helmi. Yes, sure. I will be happy to tell you more about Sri Lanka's Control of Pesticides Act number 33 of 1980 and amendments, and the National Policy and Action Plan on Prevention of Suicide of 1997 that together received the Future Policy Special Award 2021. It's important to put these policies into context. From 1950 to 1990s, suicide rates in Sri Lanka increased eightfold. Sri Lanka had one of the world's highest suicide rates, and pesticide poisoning accounted for more than 2/3 of all cases. In 1978 alone, over 1,000 people in Sri Lanka killed themselves with pesticides, and in 1979, the rate was 79 cases of pesticide poisoning per 100,000 people. So more high mortality rates resulted from easy access to highly hazardous pesticides, which were stored in or in close vicinity to the homes and common use areas of small-scale farmers. Additionally, these highly hazardous pesticides could be easily be purchased from stores without any regulations in place. In 1980, the government adopted the Pesticide Act. And with this act, Sri Lanka ensures that only pesticides of highest quality and less hazardous to human health and the environment are available. The act is integrated into the national policy on prevention of suicide, which explicitly supports the use of pesticide regulations to reduce suicide. Over the years, the country used the Pesticide Act to ban a total of 36 of the most dangerous pesticides. The first wave of bans entered into force in 1984, prohibiting pesticides known to be related to suicide, such as pyrazine and methylpyrazine. From 1992 to 95, further bans were implemented. In 98, a rise in deaths due to the organochlorine insecticide endosulfan was noted, and it was banned immediately. An additional regulatory ban of the pesticides dimethoate, fenthion, and paraquat took place between 2008 and 2011, which reduced suicide rates by 50%. The Act sets up governing bodies, provides for licensing of pesticides, regulates their import, labeling, and use, amongst other things. And during registration, pesticides are tested in field trials. If a substance is banned, alternatives are being identified, and farmers are being informed about these alternatives through government, agriculture extension services, and training programs.
Could you give a quick hint on what lessons could other countries learn from Sri Lanka? And what are Sri Lanka's future goals and challenges ahead?
Yes, as the Sri Lankan approach is simple, pragmatic, cost-effective, and adequately implemented. It shows how national highly hazardous pesticide bans can reduce suicide rates in an impressive manner and protect critical environmental resources. Sri Lanka is a world leader in integrating this issue of suicide into pesticide policy. And since Sri Lanka's initial efforts, Bangladesh, the Republic of Korea, and other countries have introduced bans of highly hazardous pesticides and reduced their pesticide suicide rate. Currently, South Asia has the highest pesticide suicide rate in the world, and many countries there and elsewhere could definitely follow Sri Lanka's approach. On future goals, recently since May 21, the Sri Lankan government has restricted and banned the import of fertilizers and agrochemicals. As His Excellency said, the new policy will no longer allow the use of highly hazardous pesticides in agriculture. With these steps, the Sri Lankan government seeks to particularly rein rising healthcare costs brought about by overuse of chemicals in agriculture production. There are widespread concerns in the country with non-communicable diseases arising due to the use of agrochemicals, with cancer becoming a countrywide concern. So Sri Lanka's step can certainly also be seen in the context of many international initiatives, such as the finding of the forthcoming UNEP report on environmental and health impacts of pesticides and fertilizers and ways to minimizing them, and also with the work of the FAO, WHO, and UNEP on a global action plan to phase out highly hazardous pesticides used in agriculture by 2030.
Thank you very much, Ingrid, for sharing these insights with us. And I think now it's time to see a short film about what these policies implies, especially in the rural villages and for the youth.
මගේ නම ශ්‍රීමල් ලහිරු මදුසංක මගේ වයස අවුරුදු 31යි මගේ ගම එප්පාවල මගේ පවුල ඉතින් මමයි වයිෆුයි බබාලා දෙන්නයි
මගේ නම කේ හර්ෂණී මදුශික මට දැන් අවුරුදු 28ක් වෙනවා මේ ගෙදරට ඇවිල්ලා දැන් අවුරුදු 5ක් 6ක් වෙනවා ලොකු දෝනි හම්බෙලා අවුරුද්දකට විතර පස්සේ මෙහෙට ආවා
මොකද එදා උනේ?
එදා උනේ කොහොම හරි අයියයි මායි අතර පොඩි රණ්ඩුවක් වුණා. ඊට පස්සේ අයියා වැඩට ගියා. අම්මත් කොහේ හරි ගියා. කොහොම හරි අර පීඩනේ තමයි ඉතින් අර මෙහෙ පුරුදු නෑ පරිසරය. තනියම එහෙ ගොඩක් අයත් එක්ක ඉඳලා එලා තනිකම පාළුව. මොකද අර සැහැල්ලුවෙන් හිටපු ජීවිතේ එකපාරට මෙහෙට ආවට පස්සේ හිර වුණා වගේ වුණා.
එදා ඉතින් වයිෆුත් එක්ක ඉතින් බහින් බසීමක් ඇති වෙලා මම එයත් එක්ක පොඩ්ඩක් රණ්ඩු වෙලා තරහට ගිහිල්ලා වයිෆ් වහබිව්වේ. එතකොට අපි දන්නේ වයිෆ් ප්‍රෙග්නන්ට් වෙලා කියලා. එහෙමනම් කවදාත් හිතුවේ නෑ වස බොයි කියලා. අපි ගොවිතැන් කරනකොට ඉතින් එයා දන්නවා අපේ වස තියෙන තැන් දන්නවා. ඒ විදිහට එයා ඉතින් ඇරිදා රණ්ඩුවක් ඇති වුණ නිසා එයා ගිහිල්ලා ඉතින් එතනට ගිහිල්ලා වහ කුප්පියක් අරන් ආපු තරහට ඉතින් බිව්වා ඉතින්.
අර පීඩනෙත් එක්ක තමයි ඉතින් ඒක බීලා හරි මැරෙයි කියන ඒකෙන් තමයි ඉතින් ගිහින් ගත්තා අරගෙන බිව්වා. එච්චරයි ඉතින් අර තේරුමක් නෑ වස කියන්නේ මොකද්ද මොකද මේකෙන් වෙන්නේ කියලා. අර මැරෙන චේතනාව තමයි ගොඩක් තිබ්බේ හිතේ. දැන් ජීවිතේ සතුටුයි. මොකද දැන් තනියම ඉන්නේ. අපි 4 දෙනා විතරයි කවුරුත් ඇඟිලි ගහන්න නැහැ. අපි දෙන්නගේ ප්‍රශ්න අපි දෙන්නගේ ඇතුළේ ඉඳගෙන එහෙමයි. ඒ කාලෙට වැඩිය දැන් හොඳින් ඉන්නවා.
ගොඩක් ඉස්සර නම් හැබැයි ගොඩක් වස බිව්වා. ඊට පස්සේ වස පොඩ්ඩක් පාලනය කරාට පස්සේ විස දේවල් අඩු වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒකෙන් ඉතින් මිනිස්සු වස බොන ප්‍රමාණය අඩු වෙලා තියෙනවා. බිව්වත් හානියක් වෙන්නේ නැහනේ. ඒ බීපු වසේ තෙල් එකේ සැර අඩු නිසා එයා බේරුණා. නැත්තම් එහෙම ඉතින් මැරිලානේ එයා.
Now, I think this film well underlines that we globally should make sure that our health and environments are not threatened by unnecessary harmful chemicals, and that it's doable. Can you imagine how many lives and environmental resources could be saved if similar policies would be implemented globally? Uncountable. I also very much invite you to have a look at the animated film about Sri Lankan policies that the German Ministry of Environment has on its website. You can find the link here in the chat. And now it's time to move to another region in the world, to India, to Sikkim. Come with me now from these islands of Sri Lanka to the Himalayas, to the Indian state of Sikkim, to learn more about another extraordinary and impactful policy. Sikkim became the first 100% organic state in the world, implemented a phase out of chemical fertilizers and pesticides, and achieved a total ban on sale and use of chemical pesticides in the state. For all these reasons, it received in 2018 the Future Policy Gold Award. And I'm here now very happy to welcome Mr. Sander Ambalagan, Chief Executive Officer of the Sikkim Organic Farming Development Agency of the Government of Sikkim. Mr. Ambalagan, the floor is yours.
Maybe I think we lost Mr. Ambalagan. He was just there and now he's away.
I also saw him a while ago, but now I don't. So maybe we go now and jump and see the short film about this award-winning policy until he comes back, or we have to move on.
The former kingdom of Sikkim is an Indian federal state between Bhutan and Nepal. Honorable Chief Minister Sri Pawan Chamling grew up on a farm in a small village. Although an accomplished poet, he managed a very impressive career as a politician.
Welcome to Sikkim, the first organic state of India.
He won a record 5 re-elections as chief minister with clear margins. The only big farm of Sikkim is this 400 organic hectares of Temi tea, which is run by the government. Horticulture research is carried out on this state farm. And the tree nursery provides diversification of trees to the farmers. The market in Sikkim's capital, Gangtok, has its own organic section, providing for all foods needs. Model farms and farmer field schools have been fundamental in meeting the challenge to convert over 65,000 farmers to organic farming. Farming on steep hills and mountains is a challenge, and cultivating on terraces is a sustainable logic. Farmers learn about many different ways to make compost. Most popular in India is vermicompost, which shows the best results. Also inspired by Gandhi, Chief Minister Chamling has become a worldwide unique champion and hero by converting all farms of Sikkim to organic farming. May the world follow his example and inspiration.
My message is to create an organic, pollution-free, and clean world. My message is chemical-free world. If we want to protect our planet, we go for organic farming.
So I'm very happy to see Mr. Sander and Balagan back here, at least as a black name here. Do you hear me, Mr. Sander? So if this is not the case, I mean, I think even the film was able to convey how inspiring it is to see that this transition, Sikkim's transition, has really benefited so many farming families and has at the same time reached beyond organic production and has proved truly transformational for the state and its citizens. So I can only say, well done, leaders of Sikkim, and I wish you the best of luck to continue this path into the future. In the absence of Sander at the moment, I will have to move on to the panel discussion. Maybe this gives us some more minutes to exchange until Mr. Anbalagan will be back. We will now start with this panel discussion about the roles that pesticides and agroecology policies can play in transforming our agri-food systems, and the policy interventions that are urgently needed to accelerate this transformation. During the debates, you are all very much invited to ask questions and make comments in the chat. And I will then direct them directly to the speakers during the debate. As said before, I'm very happy to have with me Sarojini Rengam, and I see her still with us. Welcome. The Executive Director of the Pesticide Action Network, Asia and Pacific, Mr. Baogan Gu, from the Senior Agricultural Officer for Pest and Pesticide Management at the FAO, Gabor, my dear friend, the Senior Manager of Global Policies at IFOAM Organics International, Kehashan Basu, founder and president of the Green Hope Foundation, and a colleague at the World Future Council, the youngest World Future Councillor, and of course Hansen, the president of the Millennial Institute. And I will start with Mr. Baogan Gu, who is working at the FAO, and will ask him now, what is your view about the role of pesticide policies in the transformation towards new agri-food systems that were adopted by the World Summit on Food Systems?
Thank you, Chair. It's my honor to attend this webinar. From the video of Sri Lanka pesticide policy, we can know that pesticide is closely relevant with our life and environment. Sound management is important for protecting human health and the environment. Pesticide management is a regulatory issue, and the policies and legislation of pesticide use and pesticide management provide institutional and legal framework for pesticide management to all relevant stakeholders. FAO has developed policies in pesticide management, including the International Code of Conduct on Pesticide Management, which provide standard conduct actions on the all relevance regarding the pesticide risk reduction. In support of achieving SDG by 2030, FAO endorsed a new strategy on transformation to the more efficient inclusive, resilient, and sustainable agri-food systems for better production, better nutrition, better environment, and a better life, leaving no one behind. Use of chemical pesticide poses risks to human health and ecosystem. To support the transformation, pesticide management policy have to be aligned with the new strategy and amended to support better production, better environment, and better human health. Yeah, I think the pesticide policy could play important roles in transforming to the new agri-food system, and agroecology is key element of the systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another question, if you allow me, and it's how important is this policy for the FAO pesticide management program to come and at the moment?
Yeah, from the Sri Lanka's successful pesticide policy, we can know that pesticide policy could have crucial roles in protecting human health and environment. And to support the SDGs, achieving the SDG and transforming to the new agri-food system, pesticide policy will have its important roles in the process. The priority will be on addressing highly hazardous pesticide, promoting green products, green pesticide and technology, promote integrate pest management and ecosystem to reduce reliance on chemical pesticide use. And also we try to have policies, strengthen policies on the agrochemical waste management. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all these insights. And let me go to the next panelist, Sarojini Rangam, who is leading the Pesticide Action Network, Asia and Pacific, and with whom we are happy to cooperate in organizing this event, which we are here jointly in. One question to you. In your view, what does Sri Lanka's award-winning pesticide policy entail? How is this policy connected to current efforts of the Pesticides Action Network, Asia Pacific?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Helmi. First of all, I would like to congratulate Sri Lanka for their good policy, particularly the Pesticide Act, which basically banned a total of 36 highly hazardous pesticides. And at the same time, they were able to maintain its agricultural productivity. I think that's amazing. Recently, as the minister mentioned, they also banned the importation of chemical pesticides and fertilizers to make Sri Lanka organic. Both these policies have huge implications to safeguard the health of Sri Lankans, especially children who are exposed to these highly hazardous pesticides while working in farm or as child laborers or in the vicinity of pesticide spraying in agriculture. And we know that 108 million children are working in the agricultural sector, and these future generations are being exposed to pesticides that adversely impact their health and intelligence. I would also like to congratulate Sikkim for becoming the first Indian 100% organic state. But I also feel that both these policies are a good way, are leading the way for agroecology and a step forward in terms of transformation of the food systems. For real transformation, it also requires partnerships with farmers, peasants, small food producers, women and their movements, and the need to address structural issues of poverty, hunger and malnutrition, as well as corporate control of food and agriculture, if we really want to achieve SDGs and a healthy planet. For PAN, our goal is eliminating the harm caused by pesticides and to promote agroecology. And we know that pesticides cause 385 million farmers and workers to be acutely poisoned every year. And this does not include chronic effects, as well as environmental collapse, such as collapse of biodiversity. And worse, the most marginalized, the agricultural workers, particularly women and migrant workers, spray pesticides daily in the plantations and in farms, but their exploitation and poisoning are ignored. These pesticides also do not respect borders and contaminate land, water, and air to pollute the whole world. So far, we have the Stockholm and Rotterdam Conventions, but these only deal with very few pesticides. And the voluntary code of conduct that was mentioned is good, but it does not have the mandate or teeth to stop prevention or the violations of its provision. So we are calling for global mechanisms to phase out the highly hazardous pesticides and replace them with agroecology in the hope of preventing this kind of violations of people's rights to healthy lives and livelihoods. So we need a strong resolution reflected in urgent actions at the global level, including in UNEA, United Nations Environment Assembly, to start the process to develop legal mechanisms to prevent this continued poisoning. We also need our governments to implement such sustainable policies, such as the one enacted by Sri Lanka and Sikkim, begin a review of pesticides that are causing poisonings, environmental contamination, and those that are being used in suicides, and ban these pesticides, and to protect the health of our people as a priority and not put economic considerations before the health of our people and the planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I have a second follow-up question, a quick one? The Pesticide Action Network Asia Pacific was one of the co-organizers of the recent Global People's Summit on Food Systems. Why?
Yeah, we together with more than 300 organizations and small food producers movements representing millions of farmers, women, agricultural workers, were very critical of the UN Food System Summit. One was because the leadership of the summit was in the hands of big philanthropists and big corporations, and it's reflected by the UN strategic partnership with the World Economic Forum and the choice of the special envoy. So, and many reports have come out, and it shows very clearly that the business sector has been part of the problem of food systems and has not been accountable for the food crisis of 2009 and 2008, 2009. So therefore allowing the business sector to dominate the food system summit endangers the future of food systems and people's ability to fully realize their human rights. So therefore, we felt that we need to tackle the structural issues of poverty, hunger, malnutrition, including landlessness, land grabbing, marginalization and discrimination of women and indigenous peoples, and domination and exploitation for profits by corporations in food and agriculture. Therefore, we organized the Global People's Summit for just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems, or the GPS, as a way to contribute towards further building and strengthening the global people's movement that will challenge not only the control of transnational corporations over food and agriculture, but also to promote human rights, food sovereignty, genuine agrarian reform, and rural development that is really for the people, and of course the indigenous peoples' control over their territories. So therefore, it was a way to consolidate and basically promote and build concrete programs to have a real people's transformation of the food systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all these insights. And let me quickly move to Gabor Figetsky, who is leading the policy work at IFORM. and with whom we partnered successfully, as I said, on the Future Policy Award 2018. Now, my question to you, Gabor, is IFORM recently organized the World Organic Congress, at which some 2,500 plus organic stakeholders, farmers, researchers, and policymakers came together. The Congress also presented the successful policies of the 100% organic Sikkim. What are the main messages from the Congress, and what role does the 100% organic Sikkim plays therein?
Thank you very much, Helmi. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Yes, indeed, we are just almost completely freshly out of the Organic World Congress, which is the biggest gathering for the organic world, but not just for the organic world. Also, we have all sorts of like-minded, as we like to put them, like-minded movements. So people from the agroecology movement joining the Congress. Of course, there were a lot of important discussions, very much important for the future of the organic sector, as well as the movement itself, and very relevant, I think, for the Food Systems Summit, which we have also taken quite a critical stance towards. Nevertheless, we try to follow the follow-up of the Food Systems Summit to some extent, how, for example, a coalition on agroecology will evolve further. Just before the conference, the Congress, we organized a pre-conference to bring together policymakers that are either in the process of designing progressive policies that support agroecology, or can already share experiences in the implementation of such policies. And of course, Sikkim was very much one of them. It is still seen as a very progressive approach, and with a lot of experiences, a rich history of experiences. And it is applying both pull and push measures. So they very much focus on both sides of the value chains to support organic and agroecology. But of course, we did not only have Sikkim there. We had various policies presented, and we were very happy to see that in addition to the so-called old success stories, like, for example, Denmark with their National Organic Action Plan, or Tunisia, Brazil with PNAPO and PLANAPO. We were very happy to see new ones coming up, actually. So, like, for example, Uganda, which just adopted its national organic policy 2 years ago, or Madagascar, also coming up very strongly. And now a new example is Sri Lanka, which has made this bold decision that you have heard about just this year. These policies probably have the biggest impact implemented at the national level, but we should not underestimate the role of subnational ones. So there were quite a few interesting examples presented from the regional, or let's say provincial level, like we have Huancavelica also going 100% organic in Peru, or the Karnali province in Nepal. And we have the good examples from the United States, the Good Food Purchasing Program. So at the municipality level also, there is quite some movement. We can mention Quito, Ecuador, Bogota, Colombia, Copenhagen, and many other European cities running very interesting and very progressive food purchasing programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabor. A very quick follow-up question. IFORM recently launched, together with others, the Food Policy Forum for Change. And how does IFORM plan to contribute moving towards sustainable and healthy agri-food systems through this new food policy forum?
Thank you, Helmi. Well, this pre-conference was actually very much part of this program that we started with BioVision as well as the Millennial Institute, and FAO has also come on board with their Scaling Up Agroecology initiative. And the idea was actually to design a safe space for the policymakers to come together to have an honest exchange on what went well, what went wrong, when it comes to the implementation, but also the design of these policies that support organic or agroecology. So for this forum, we also organized earlier this year in April an event with leaders from Himalayan states, because interestingly in the Himalayas and in fact in a lot of mountainous, so remote areas in the world, agroecology seems to be coming up as a leading policy. So we had leaders from Nepal, from Bhutan, and from many Indian states in Himalaya, and of course Sikkim shined there very much as the guiding light, because they have just such a vast experience in implementing these policies. But we can of course mention Andhra Pradesh and Himachal Pradesh, which do a good job with their natural farming initiative. So we also work a bit closer with governments, like, for example, with Nepal, Madagascar, Burkina Faso, Uganda, and we already managed to pair them on the basis of what sort of measures these countries are implementing. So recently we had a good exchange, for example, between the leaders in Denmark and in Uganda. And we definitely wanted to build on this further and develop these peer-to-peer exchanges in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabor. Thank you. Now I'm happy to move to Kehkashan Bazu, and I would like to ask you now 2 questions. As a very inspiring young activist, the question to you is, what do young people think is needed to overcome the current state of affairs? What infrastructure must be put in place to ensure food security?
Thank you for the question. Hello, everyone. And I would say that as a young person who has over a decade's experience, both at the grassroots level as well as in the policy-making process, I think I am uniquely positioned to comment on this. And I would say that the greatest challenge to attaining food security is the lack of data and knowledge about the impacted communities, because we cannot assess this crisis just at a macro level. For years, we've assessed it from a distance, passed judgment from a westernized hegemonic viewpoint, trivializing local inputs. And that is why even today, in an age of technology, we cannot predict the next famine. We allow food to rot in our supermarkets, while just a few blocks away, people struggle with hunger. And the situation in the global south is even more complex, with a multitude of factors that work to amplify pre-existing inequalities. To echo what my fellow panelists have said, food insecurity in these locales are manifested in varying degrees of intensity for women and girls, young people, for minorities, and traditionally archaic social setups also put them at a disadvantage. And the lack of local knowledge at a policymaking level turns redressal mechanisms to be just grossly symbolic and ineffective. And in the majority of countries, and especially in patriarchal societies, women's access to land, and by extension to food sources and to accessing agroecology products, are hindered by customary, traditional, and cultural practices. And this continues to be highlighted by many reports, some as old as 2014 OECD report, as a major impediment to not only build resilience against hunger, but also in bringing about agroecology as well as gender equality in these societies. So I think it's really important that we start by addressing the knowledge gaps. This does require financing, localized investments. We must support local actors, NGOs who are doing the work that a lot of governments should be doing, also promoting government, private sector, civil society partnerships. And I think most importantly, we must address also the endemic corruption that plagues many of these societies. And just to conclude, COVID-19 has demonstrated the fragility and the gross inequity that our linear supply chains have put forward. So we need to build infrastructure that facilitates the creation and the development of local circular bioeconomies with the data monitoring systems in place so that they can report on the efficacy. And until that is done, people will continue to die from all of the lack of data in many parts of the world, while elsewhere, billionaires take trips to space.
Thank you for this first answer from your perspective. And now let me have a follow-up question. In your line of work, what intersections do you see with food security and other global challenges such as biodiversity loss? And how do policies like Sikkim and Sri Lanka address these multiple challenges ahead?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, my work with Green Hope Foundation encompasses people and communities who are amongst the most marginalized and predominantly in the rural areas affected most by all of the world's challenges, really, and nature-dependent communities within the LDCs. And these are traditionally communities also dependent on agriculture that have learned to symbiotically flourish within their local natural ecosystems through regenerative practices. But then the impacts of climate change and biodiversity loss has degenerated and destabilized their food systems over time, and in many cases irrevocably, and its impacts are unequally felt by young people and in particular by women and girls. So land loss due to climate change and biodiversity degeneration causes an outward migration of men first, leaving women with an additional burden of sole responsibility of their families. And even more than that, youth and women are underrepresented in the local governance structures, including those for land management and movement towards agroecology, forestry, fisheries. And since their contributions are often undervalued, they are not really viewed as stakeholders in adaptation decision-making processes. So it is largely left to non-state actors like us in many parts of the world to build grassroots resilience, combating corruption, political inefficiency, gross lack of empathy at all levels. And, it's really nice that policies of Sikkim and Sri Lanka towards agroecology have shown that whenever there is political will and a clear pattern of accountability, we can effectively address these challenges. And both of them have the advantage of addressing small populations wherein there's a controlled and manageable environment. So I think this leads us to infer that it's really critical to address the food insecurity conundrum from a more local, regionalized context, especially while formulating resilience to climate change and biodiversity loss impacts, because they really are different all across the world. A one-size-fits-all solution isn't going to work. And that said, COVID-19 has obliterated much of the progress, and it's done so in every part of the world. And according to the recent World Food Program report, it's affected just countries disproportionately, especially small island developing states, while reducing foreign direct investments. So regulations, restrictions to curb successive waves of the pandemic has hampered income earning opportunities as well, even in agricultural societies, and that's impacted food and nutrition security in these countries. So since our work spans over 25 countries from developed nations to LDCs, I feel that building food security and moving towards agroecology will only be possible once we assimilate a fact-based understanding of its intersectionalities with climate, biodiversity, gender, as well as social inequity. And above all, we need localized solutions for this global problem.
Thank you very much for this perspective, very interesting perspective. Let me now move to our next panelist, Hans. As we have heard before, he wears many important hats and also is a fellow counselor at the World Future Council. One question to you, Hans. Whilst it's widely acknowledged that we need urgently to transform our food systems to ensure our common future on this planet, too little is known about the policies that countries or states have developed and are implementing to support this transition. What is it that, and what was the main trigger for the policy change you have seen?
Yeah, thank you for this question, Helmi. The issue with policies is that quite often, they are sort of random. And in a study we did on transforming the food system both in Senegal and in Kenya a few years ago, we noticed that, or I asked the question to the colleagues who were doing the study for transforming. So how are policies actually made? Is there a handbook? Sort of what is the process? And we found out that in these two countries, but it's the same anywhere else, it's very much sort of an outside-driven process or an ad hoc type of process. And there are not really rules on how some of these policies come even to be. So we have a problem in most government that policies are made, sort of in the crisis situation. Oh, we have a problem here with maybe food security, and then let's do a quick policy here on maybe let's import food so that we maybe have a bit more reserves. But you see, it's not with the long-term and system thinking, because policies actually should come as a result of a discussion with all the concerned parties, which is most of the time not the case. And so that's why we have this type of policies today, which favor vested interest most of the time. Fertilizer policies, for example, how do they come? Is because of the pressure of the fertilizer industry. We know that. When we want to change policies on pesticide, huge pushback from the industry. I mean, it is only now after more than 20 years of battling that Bayer and Monsanto finally decided that maybe in 2023 they will ban Roundup, glyphosate. Maybe, we're not even 100% sure. I mean, how much more do we need? And to me, it looks also a comment here, maybe Mr. Gu can comment too, but I think, and many other people also, that FAO, the UN, has to take, FAO, UNEP and others, a much stronger stance, because we have all the evidence that those pesticides kill bees, that they kill people. So why is it that, there's no much stronger case? And the problem here is then, again, back to policy, is where are the policies who promote the research in the alternatives? Because we do often need alternatives, and some exist. We have just been demonstrated in the last few weeks and months that there are biopesticides can be used against locusts very successfully. I was actually part of the team who developed this, was my team way back in Cotonou at IITA. We developed green mussel. We developed another product, is the pheromone, which keeps the locust on the ground, a totally natural product which could be used. So, but again, it doesn't enter the policy because the vested interests out there are pushing policymakers with all kind of, let's say, corruption, actually, right? Of to do something different. So again, it's great that the World Future Council with the FPA, the Food Policy Award, is creating more awareness that we can have alternative policies, and that the solutions quite often, not always, exist. But I think one of the major effort in terms of policy is that governments need to take back the initiative on policies, listening to the people, listening to the science, listening to the knowledge, the experience of the farmer to build this policy. So that's how it should be done, and not the way it's done today, mostly on the pressure of the vested interest. So again, to me, it looks like when it comes to policies, there has to be a much more coordinated and a thoughtful process leading to these policies. And I think that, again, the examples we have from Sri Lanka, from Sikkim, and from other countries where policy have been done to favor alternatives would be very useful. Actually, take the example of the African Union. The heads of states have actually decided and signed a document on the ecological and organic agriculture, signed by the heads of states for Africa. Now, again, I mean, this is the highest level you can think of. Is that being translated into national policies is the question. Is that being picked up by international organizations to say, oh, yes, we have that initiative at the highest level. Why can't we now build the necessary policies to support this initiative of the heads of states? It's not being done, really. And I think so. So again, using what people already have discussed in many meetings to transform that system, the way the policies are made and what problem they address, I think will be extremely important.
Thank you, Hans. Thank you very much for this comprehensive answer on actually both my questions to you. But now, because we have some minutes remaining, first I want to point the attention that there in the chats are some important links. So please have a look regarding policy tools for policy making. But from the other side, there was one question already from the audience, which I would like to pass on to the panel. And this question was from Marwan Zorani. When will an agricultural organization be able to enforce regulations and clear guidelines on its member countries for organic agriculture? Now, it's an open invitation for the whole panel, of course. I know that here is Paogan Gu, who is in a way representing and part of the FAO. So I will give him the first answer, but please tell me whoever from the panel wants to take another point of view. Paogan, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Before answering the question, I would like to respond to the Hans' views. Actually, yeah, pesticide use of pesticide is increasing in past 4 decades. And the total amount of chemical use of pesticide reached to 4 million tons in 2019. So continued use of pesticide, especially the highly heavy pesticide, really pose great impacts on the human health environment. So justify the achievements of the SDGs. And the FAO approach is first to promote, integrate pest management to reduce reliance on chemical use of pesticide, use of chemical pesticide. And then implemented the holistic approach to reduce the risks of pesticide, among which the policy is core, because policy provides the institutional framework, also the guidance and directions for the pesticide management activities. So I think the policy will continue to play the key roles in pesticide risk reduction, especially Sri Lanka pesticide policy is really a good example of the important roles of the new policies in pesticide risk reduction. Regarding questions on the endorsement of regulation and the guidance on the organic agriculture, I worked on pest and pesticide and not an expert on organic farming. And I cannot provide details or detailed information regarding these issues. However, I can inform you that FAO will support all kinds of production systems, sustainable production system, including agroecology, organic agriculture, which will contribute to transforming to the more efficient, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable agri-food system. I think FAO will support all kinds of good green production systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who would like to try to address this question from the audience, when FAO will be able to enforce on member states regulations regarding organic agriculture or like organic agriculture? Gabor, please.
Yeah, so I guess we also need to understand what the question or what the person asking the question was alluding to. Unfortunately, there is no regulations from FAO to be enforced on countries on organic agriculture. I mean, of course, countries have their own regulations, standards, so this is how organic is regulated. I'm just guessing that the participant wanted to ask when will FAO be able to to guide countries towards a more agroecological pathway or towards more organic agriculture? And that is a really good question, and I'm not sure whether we have the time for such a debate. But I mean, if you just look at the resources that FAO has and from where those resources come from, it's sometimes just the other way around, if I might highlight this thing. So FAO is not really an organization or an institution that can enforce something on member states. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's the other way around. But of course, FAO does a lot of useful work in backing up the Committee on World Food Security, on compiling voluntary guidelines that many of the countries then learn from and pick up on various issues. So there's a lot of good work done there, but it is still left very much to the countries to decide which path they want to follow to achieve all the goals on food security, climate change, biodiversity, and so on. So the Sustainable Development Goals.
Thank you very much, Gabor. And for the sake of keeping our time, I would like now to conclude by asking each panelist to give us his or her conclusion and recommendations about what are the most required policy interventions for transforming our agri-food systems into sustainable and healthy ones. And please, for the sake of time, keep in mind, it should be not a very detailed recommendation, but a 1 minute quick shot, which we will take with us and further discuss. And now going back to those on my screen, I would actually very much ask Sander and Balajan, if he can hear me now and wants to speak, to at least take this final round. And for you, I would extend it to a few minutes more to just give us very much a conclusion.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like, I sincerely apologize for the internet connectivity issues I had just some time back. So I would briefly tell about what Sikkim did and how we went about briefly in 2-3 minutes. I would like to, if I have that much time.
You have 2-3 minutes, and we are really happy to hear you and that you are back.
Yeah, thank you very much. I sincerely apologize once again to all the panelists and the participants. However, as the presentation that was, the video that was shown, we started some 20 years back about going organic, and the decision was taken by the government, and it was a government decision all through. And we started with pilot projects, and some of the policy decisions were taken that changed the course of the organic initiative. So one such initiative was discouraging the use of chemical fertilizers in the state, and we have also enacted legislation that bans the use of chemical fertilizers in the state, and it has even penal provisions for use of chemical fertilizers. So such is the stringency with which we have followed, and after about 10 years of time, we achieved what we are now. That is, we have become 100% certified organic farming state in the world. And our future plan of action is to create value chain system where we are trying to link the producers and the consumers by supporting the producers on the one hand and creating functional infrastructure for processing, and link them up with the consumers with marketing strategies. So this is in short about how we went about. And thank you very much once again for the organizers for giving an opportunity for us. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for this intervention. Thank you very much for describing what you're doing and for this fantastic achievements you have achieved together with your colleagues, your people, and your leadership. And yeah, we hope that it will inspire many, many, many more countries and regions in the world to go the same path and achieve the same results for their people.
Thank you.
Back to our panel. The 1 minute has shrinked a little bit, but Sarojini Rengam, it's now your final call.
Okay, thank you very much. I think for me, we would need a global legal mechanism to phase out the highly hazardous pesticides and replace them with agroecology. I also think that in order to do a good, healthy agro-food system, we need a framework of human rights, food sovereignty, and rights of farmers to land and resources. I think that's very, very critical and important, and to prevent corporate control of food and agriculture. And that actually links it to what Hans was saying about vested interest, but I think it's also the corporate control that needs to be curtailed in this systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hans, do you want to take the lead?
Quick one. What I would like to see a whole lot more, I think, in terms of policy is coherence within the SDGs. And I think that if government right now would really take seriously the SDGs and implement what is asked, then I think we will be on the right path. So because we have everything in there, maybe not at the level we like to go, but I think that if we want good health, we want to protect our biodiversity, we want more equity, so it's all there. Zero hunger, eliminate poverty, just name it. So actually, although we should probably do better, if we only would do that in the next 10 years, I think we'll be very well off. And that means that governments have to take back the responsibility for agricultural research, because right now it's been delegated mostly to the private sector. It has to be agri-research and development, and the research being, again, co-creation, working with farmers, etc., and the communities which are involved, is a government responsibility when it comes to food systems, and not something for the private sector to handle. So let's make sure that our governments do what they are supposed to do in terms of transforming our food system through policies, which again puts government and the people who actually are of the country, the citizens who actually elect this government, back into charge.
Thank you, Hans. Pao Gengu, it's your call.
Okay, thank you. Just one sentence. Policy really plays key roles in sound management of pesticide. FAO will continue to support member countries on developing good policies on pesticide management in cooperation with all relevant stakeholders. Now we're also looking for cooperation with you, looking for your active engagement and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kekashan, your final call.
Sure. I would like to reiterate the importance of having data and data that is disaggregated by different social determinants that affect, well, the movement into a sustainable agroecology and food systems. And I would also say that localizing solutions, even with nations, especially larger nations, is extremely important. And here I would say that partnerships of governments and civil society organizations working on the ground is crucial, so that it's not just a top-down approach towards creating sustainable food systems, but something that really benefits every single sector, and especially those on the ground who are most often left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gabor, the last call is yours.
Thank you very much. I would also like to pick up on the point Hans raised, policy coherence, very important. So if you talk about all those millions and billions that go in the wrong direction, so you give something with your right hand, that's very little to organic and agroecology, even that you take away from with your left hand if you don't design your policies right. So we definitely need more investment into the right policies. That's for us important to keep in mind, and also for policymakers to make these bold steps. They need to be brave, courageous to drive these policies. And also we, the civil society sector, need to be aware that not everything is what it looks to be. So be aware of the new terms that come up, nature-based solutions, nature-positive production. So the way some see agroecology or regenerative agriculture, that also can be debated. So we should also see clearly which policies are actually doing good and which not. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabor. Thank you, dear friends, dear panelists, dear ladies and gentlemen. Let me close now by reminding us that I think COVID-19 was a very strong reminder that we need to reduce our ecological footprint through transformative policies. Human and planetary health are closely linked. We urgently need to prevent and reverse the loss of ecosystems and apply the precautionary approach to human health and the environment. Food insecurity, climate change, biodiversity loss, and chemical pollution. To address these multiple crises, one key step is certainly that we urgently transform our food systems into more sustainable and healthy ones to ensure our common future on the planet. We all are now much better aware about the significant role that exemplary pesticide and agricultural policies can play in transforming our food system. The two discussed policies at the webinar are just 2 of 16 laws coming from 40 countries from around the globe that have been recognized with the Future Policy Award. And we invite you to visit our website www.futurepolicy.org to learn more about these and other award-winning policies that drive positive change, address the multiple crises we face, and bring about results that are worth of application globally. Join us in spreading the word about them and engage with us for a better future. With this webinar, we are pleased to contribute to the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, which aims to accelerate actions for the protection and regeneration of ecosystems all around the world for the benefit of people and nature. I would like to end this session with a huge gratitude, of course, for our esteemed speakers, panelists, for accepting to share your time and knowledge with us. We are extremely thankful. To you, all our cherished participants and listeners who joined here on Zoom and Facebook, we thank you for your time, for listening and participating. And we hope you will be ambassadors for ecosystem regeneration in your various communities and help us to push for healthy and sustainable agri-food systems, because they define to a very large extent how our common future will look like. Of course, I do not want to forget to thank the German Ministry for the Environment and the German Environmental Agency, who made this webinar possible through their contributions. But then, last not least, of course, I want also to thank the entire team who have worked behind the scenes to make this webinar a success, especially Alexandra Wandl, Anna Lara Steen, Ingrid Fritsche, and many others from the World Future Council. Thank you all for your efforts and dedication. Please follow the World Future Council's social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and subscribe to our newsletter so that you are not missing out on any future webinar or other activity. Thank you all once again for joining, and hope to see you soon again, and enjoy the rest of your day, and goodbye.
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 Thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye.
Nice to see you all.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good day, good evening.